Monica Harding for the adjournment debate.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. There is no issue in my constituency of Esher and Walton that demonstrates more the inertia and the failure of the previous political leadership than the problem of overstayed, wrecked and abandoned boats that have been left to proliferate along the banks of the Thames for the last decade. So I'm pleased to have this opportunity today to bring to the attention of this House and to the attention of the Minister. Esher and Walton is a river community. The Thames forms our boundary with London. Its waters have brought Vikings to raid Walton, kings to live in Hampton Court, and it is loved by my constituents. We have rowing clubs, Molesey and Walton, which generate homegrown Olympians, the Ajax and Vikings Sea Scouts and wild swimming groups. We have riverside businesses who contribute to our local economy and provide residents and tourists with access to the most famous river in our land. All of these activities have been impacted by the sunken, wrecked and abandoned boats alongside unlicensed overstay boats. They line my entire constituent's length, from the Dittons through Molesey and down into Walton-on-Thames. There are wrecked vessels, half sunk and resting on the banks opposite Hampton Court Palace, visible to the hundreds of thousands of tourists who visit. Next door, there are overstay boats, one constituent described as a small village. It is Dickensian. The overstay boats are almost always unregistered. They turn up more and then stay for months, sometimes years. In addition to this impunity, they generate litter and waste. Some boats apparently operate as Airbnbs. Others have erected fences. They fenced off pieces of public land and the towpath, putting up keep out and private signs along the towpath. Public land and intimidating residents. Stretches of land, the riverbank, our riverbank, enjoyed for centuries by my constituents, have become no-go areas, characterised by drug use and antisocial behaviour. I will give way.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I commend the Honourable Lady for Esher and Walton for bringing this forward? I spoke to her beforehand to get our thoughts on what she hopes to achieve. Like the Honourable Lady, I have a constituency as equally as nice as hers is. But I can well understand the desire to stay and take advantage of the lovely locations that there is at the Thames River. However, it is taking advantage and preventing others from the enjoyment that is meant for all. So does the Honourable Lady not agree that we must have regulations in place which allow for reasonable enjoyment, yes, without people taking advantage?
My honourable friend makes the main point of what I wanted to say today, which is about regulations and who is accountable for this. One resident has told me how in the past few years my neighbours and I have been subjected to constant harassment, including threats of physical harm, theft of property, firing of catapults, fly tipping, dog fouling and antisocial behaviour. This is profoundly unfair on my constituents. Residents who pay their taxes have lost the river as they know it. Rowing clubs, boat hire, paddleboard companies even are unable to launch. Residents with boats who take them out and moor alongside riverside restaurants and cafes are unable to. The Molesey Regatta, which has been a fixture of my community since 1867 and which I declare an interest as an honorary president, has been required to alter the course of its race. In October, a single clean-up of one stretch of riverbank populated by these boats yielded more than 1 tonne of waste. The Environment Agency, failing to get to grips with the situation over a period of years, has meant that the number of these boats in Elmbridge has steadily risen. At the last count, the tally was approaching 250.
Will she give way?
I will give way.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. In Maidenhead, the local authority and generous individuals have taken matters into their own hands and have been able to get rid of many sunken boats along our stretch of the Thames. The EA have regarded owners of land being responsible, but lots of riverbank owners are not known, and lots of the mooring owners, we do not know who they are. So this causes significant delays, significant costs. So does my honourable friend agree with me that it's time for the Environment Agency to step up, take some responsibility, because they should be supporting our communities rather than trying to pass responsibility on to unknown landowners?
Monica Harding.
I thank my honourable friend, and he is absolutely right. The sense of frustration and disappointment with the Environment Agency in my constituency is palpable. When a highly visible problem goes unaddressed year after year, as it has for a decade, when a situation is in fact allowed to deteriorate, it creates a sense of disappointment and frustration, and it undermines the faith people have in government to deal with the things that affect people's day-to-day lives.
On that point, would you give way?
I will give way.
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for giving way, and I totally recognise the frustrations and the problems she's having with getting the relevant supervisory authorities to pay heed. In Brecon, we have a very similar issue in terms of the canal might potentially run dry following Welsh Water's decision to start charging the Canal Trust for the water it extracts. And yet none of the relevant authorities have responded to our requests for a meeting. So does she agree that in instances like this, it would be helpful to have the Minister whose department is implicated to pay attention, come to Brecon and help us find a solution?
I thank my honourable friend for his intervention. I would like the Minister to actually come to Esher and Walton first. I do appreciate your desire too. My predecessor in Esher and Walton, a previous Deputy Prime Minister, brought the former Environment Secretary to see the problem for herself. They committed to the permanent removal of these boats. Nothing happened. Yet another Conservative broken promise. Either my predecessor was uninterested or he was ineffective. Like many things, I had hope, therefore, that the new government would bring change. I wrote to the newly appointed Secretary of State and the CEO of the Environment Agency as soon as I was elected, asking for action. At that point, there were 180 boats. I was very pleased with the Minister's reply, acknowledging that the EA, as the navigation authority along the non-tidal Thames, were committed to managing the situation and to delivering a detailed action plan laying out clear steps for enforcement. I was assured that EA officials wished to regain the trust of the community. As a result of that letter, the EA towed away two of the largest and longest staying boats during an enforcement day. Hooray! Elmbridge Borough Council Housing Department joined the operation and modelled a joined-up approach with the police and the Environment Agency to respond to any homelessness issues. My local council are ready and willing to do their part, but they are frustrated that the EA are not doing theirs. The enforcement success in the autumn should have marked the beginning of the renewed energy and action, with a long-term plan finally to get to grips with the problem. But instead, it was followed up with almost nothing, and the situation has deteriorated since. This is despite months and months of advocacy and regular meetings with the EA, in which I have heard again and again about their intention to clear their boats. They have consistently overpromised and under-delivered. I was promised a survey of abandoned vessels before comprehensive removals and a long-term strategic enforcement plan as a prelude to making progress in the spring. Well, it is spring now, but both documents were endlessly delayed. Last month, the EA finally produced the survey, but it was presented so confusingly the Council found it almost useless, and I am now told the EA can't resource any of it. And then, when the plan came, it was manifestly insufficient. In today's letter, you reference this document, the Minister references this document, the Thames Waterways Compliance and Enforcement Plan for Elmbridge. I have read it. It runs for 10 pages and makes one minor mention of taking action to reduce the number of unauthorised and unregistered boats, which should have been the central focus. As one of its tactical objectives, the plan promises to develop a clear and tactical plan. Yet another promise, no plan. The document also marked, all in all, a dramatic rollback of previous ambitions. It has an almost complete lack of measurable targets, metrics, or accountability mechanisms. There is, in other words, no way to assess the progress of the EA in delivering outcomes against agreed objectives or on key concerns like number of boats removed, registration offences or rubbish cleared. And in fact, at our last meeting, the area manager suggested that the problem had become so big it was too expensive to fix.
Will you remember to give way?
I will give way.
I'm grateful to the honourable member and my constituency neighbour for giving way because, of course, rivers have two banks and we share the other one. And I would like to congratulate Spelthorne Borough Council, the EA and the police for doing such a good job on the Spelthorne side. and would like to offer my support to the honourable member for Esher and Walton in her endeavour to make their side of the river better, and any assistance that we can give, we would, of course, do so.
I am very grateful for my neighbour, the honourable member for Spelthorne, and I would love to work with him, with the Environment Agency and our relevant borough councils and the police in order to fix this problem. This morning, I will give way.
Well, I thank her so much for giving way in such an important debate. And of course, this is a really... I entirely share her frustrations in terms of moving on these boats, and it affects many of my constituents, not only in Weybridge, but across the Rinmead and Weybridge constituency. I'm sure she's going to come to this at some point in her speech later, but would she agree, given the nature of rivers, working together with myself, the member for Spelthorne, the member for Maidenhead and the Minister, to try and get a group together with the Minister so that rather than pushing these boats on, we can tackle it once and for all, would be a positive step forwards.
Yeah.
I thank the honourable member and my neighbour. I have no intention at all of pushing the boats down to his constituency. I want them gone. And there can be nothing more powerful, I think, to our shared constituents than to see us working across party in order to fix this problem. The BBC has picked up on this story this morning, and the EA gave a statement to the BBC Radio Surrey in which they claim to be taking firm, lawful and proportionate action. This is manifestly not the case. It is not firm and it is not proportionate. They also said that the current situation highlights the need for a more sustainable, systemic response and pledged a longer-term approach. This is the same hot air we have been hearing for years and years, waffling on about the need for long-term plans while the situation deteriorates. This is all in all a sad indictment of the poverty of ambition, application and competence in a body charged by taxpayers with protecting our waterways. Indeed, it is hard to overstate my constituents' disappointment at the seeming inability of the Environment Agency to deliver results, even against objectives they have themselves set, or indeed against the objectives the Secretary of State has set. This is the endless cycle. The most basic promises made to residents, to the council, or to me that are jettisoned after months of prevarication. What goals do remain are without measurement or accountability. And regrettably, I worry from the Minister's letter to me this afternoon that nothing will change, apart from her very kind ask of the Environment Agency to review their enforcement approach and her commitment to strengthening the EA's approach. And I am keen to hear from the Minister how she intends to follow up on these points. However, I was deeply frustrated to read that much of the letter repeated what I, my residents and the Council have been hearing from the EA for months and years. Promises of new plans, more joined-up working, recognitions of past disappointments and the need for change. The agency says it wants to regain the trust of my constituents. Well, it is at rock bottom, and what is needed now is far greater oversight, ministerial if necessary, and for accountability against specific and deliverable goals. I recently attended a public meeting with residents of Hurst Park and Molesey that was packed to the rafters, and it was a Friday night, with constituents so deeply upset and justifiably angry with the situation. The essence of what people call broken Britain is the sense that the public realm is incapable of solving problems, even the most egregious and obvious, and the ones that people and businesses see and feel every single day. The Prime Minister and members of the government have spoken repeatedly about the need to rebuild trust in the state, to rebuild its capacity and to show the people that systems can work and can achieve things. Something that my residents and I have found particularly frustrating has been the difficulty of attaching any accountability at all to anyone at any point, despite failure after failure. A failure to act deprives these people who I am privileged to represent, the people who play by the rules and pay for public services, of the land, the peace and the natural beauty which they have always enjoyed. So, I am asking the Minister to give this matter her personal attention and to work with me to solve this as a matter of priority. I would like her to work with me to show the people of Esher and Walton that good politics makes things better. boats listed by the Environment Agency as wrecked or abandoned can and should be cleared immediately. Doing this quickly and forcefully, rather than piecemeal, removes one of the permanent risks of these boats, that a change in river conditions could dislodge vessels and transform them into immediate hazards. Clearing overstay boats requires taking legal steps. It is vital this work is consistently and properly resourced. Taking a start and stop approach is not an option because many enforcement mechanisms unlocked by serving initial notices on boats must be done within a certain period of time. Letting opportunities disappear sets everything back to square one. The local police and the local council are ready and eager to help and have put resources aside to do their part. So, will the Minister commit personally to driving forward meaningful action on this issue through the Environment Agency and through DEFRA, to providing the necessary energy and resources, to giving me a point of contact with officials in her department to coordinate our work, and to meeting with me, either here or in my constituency, where the problem can be seen, to be believed, to discuss the progress which we can make together. The problem of overstay boats and sunken boats should not be intractable. Everyone can see the problem and the solution is obvious. It is time to show that we collectively can deliver.
For the Minister, Emma Hardy. Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and always a pleasure to serve under your chairwomanship. And I congratulate the Honourable Member for Esher and Walton on securing this important debate, and welcome the contributions from the two members opposite, the Honourable Member for Spelthorpe and the Honourable Member for Runnymede and Weybridge as well. And it's very nice on an adjournment debate to see sort of cross-party working on an issue of local, and the Honourable Gentleman over there. Go for it.
Thank you. The Minister, I would like to thank the Minister for giving way. I understand she'll have heard the points we've made about the lack of supervisory authorities. Will she write to the Welsh Minister responsible and ask him to look into the case of the Brecon Canal?
Very quick on his feet, Minister.
Thank you. Obviously, water is a devolved matter, and I think it would be... I don't want to get into an issue on devolution powers where I would instruct a Welsh Minister about what they should or shouldn't be doing, but I'd maybe encourage the Honourable Member to write back to the Welsh Minister and maybe copy in the Secretary of State for Wales. That might be one way, rather than a minister from here being seen to be telling a minister in a different government what they should or should not be doing. That would be stretching the confines of this debate, in which I will return to now. So we've heard much this evening about the benefits that our rivers and canals bring to so many people in our constituencies, and been very eloquently articulated by the honourable members. Hearing about the Vikings we've heard about Olympians, and we've heard about how important the waterways are to everyone in our area. And I was pleased to hear the enforcement success in autumn, but obviously disappointed to hear that progress hasn't been where it should have been, and I'll come to that. Our inland waterways are an asset to our country, important for our national heritage, and provide many public benefits. People live on them, enjoy being by them, and use them for leisure and recreation, as well as their historical value. They form an important part of our natural environment by providing green corridors along which biodiversity can flourish, as well as contributing to the growth of local economies, such as through domestic tourism, and we've heard quite a lot about that this evening. The Honourable Member has eloquently spoken of the beauty and tranquillity of the river in her constituency, and it is indeed one of our most majestic rivers as it winds its way along. And our navigation authorities have an important role to play into the future, and I pay tribute to them all as they maintain our waterways for the benefit of all users and their staff, who deal with many varied situations on a daily basis, sometimes in quite difficult circumstances. They will help to ensure a significant element of our nation's key infrastructure is resilient to climate change, and they will help us to meet our net zero targets through sustainable transport and energy generation, and contribute to water security through flood mitigation measures and water transfers. But the Honourable Member has spoken more in detail of the situation of overstayed boats in Elmbridge, and that have overstayed are illegally moored and that are derelict, abandoned or sunk. She has particularly drawn attention to the adverse impacts that these are having on the use and enjoyment of the river by other waterway users, including those walking along the Thames path. And I was quite concerned to hear the account of antisocial behaviour and abuse that is coming to people trying to enjoy the riverways. She's also described the interactions that she has had with the Environment Agency as the navigation authority for the non-tidal River Thames and other local authorities in the area, seeking to find a satisfactory resolution to the situation. And I'm very pleased to hear the comments about the willingness of the local council and the police to work together on this issue. So let me start by saying that I recognise the seriousness of the issue in Elmbridge and in the neighbouring constituencies, the understandable strength of feeling locally about these, and the need for visible, coordinated action to address them. So I can assure the Honourable Member that the Environment Agency, who I've spoken to about this, also understands this and looking to develop specific actions towards resolutions. But I note the point that she's made about having a plan and having deliverability of that plan and being seen to be taking action. I just want to mention, just in fairness, the wider context which the Environment Agency is working when it comes to enforcement. Obviously, any enforcement they do has to be within the law and careful and proportionate. Their powers are discretionary landowner ones, not statutory duties, meaning limitations for actions on private land and where enforcement would cause disproportionate harm. Yes, of course.
I'm really grateful for giving way. I've had countless meetings with EA and linked with Elmbridge about trying to deal with this problem, particularly in Desborough and Weybridge. Does she think that the EA has sufficient powers in statute to be able to tackle it? I mean, she just mentioned about the discretionary powers. Do we need to change the law so that this can be dealt with once and for all?
Minister.
I thank the Honourable Gentleman for his helpful intervention. That's something I'm informed by the Environment Agency that they do, but that's something I want to take away as a point and actually question them on. Is this a question of needing different powers, or are there powers that can be from the council or maybe from the police working together? But I will take that point. Of course.
I thank the Minister for giving way. These are points that I have brought up with the Environment Agency and also with the Council. They do appear to have the statutory powers to do it. It's whether they have the will to do it and the resourcing to do it, and that's the sticking point.
Minister.
Thank the Honourable Lady. And hopefully I'll come to addressing some of the things that they want to do. But where a boat is a home, especially in cases of potential vulnerability, the agency need to work with local housing and safeguarding teams to assess welfare concerns, which is why it's so important. And I welcome her comments about the council being willing to work together. So this is the question of where powers are available to sort of remove the boat, but obviously if there's people at risk of becoming homeless, the situation becomes more complicated. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Excuse me for giving way, and I thank her for giving way again. As I described, when the two largest Overstay boats that had occupants on it were removed, the Elmbridge Borough Council were there providing support for those people, and the police were also there. There was no problem with the manoeuvres that took place on that day.
I'm really pleased to hear that, and I was really pleased when she mentioned that in her speech as an effective example of agencies working together to achieve the same aim. So the agency must use its resources to ensure effective enforcement along the entire 144-mile length of the river, and obviously the point's been made about we don't want to move a problem somewhere else. Where similar pressures exist, balancing cost and benefit, of course, against other priorities. Where a removal is necessary, they've got to be done within the safety perimeters of the river, and when that is flowing fast, obviously the removal may be temporarily suspended. So I completely hear the point that has been made this evening, that the pace of progress by the Environment Agency in taking appropriate action is not as quick as wanted. I've heard that. But it is nonetheless positive, and it's looking to the long term rather than a series of short-term measures. They have used time, staff resource and financial investment. It's been deployed in Elmbridge, but I hear the point that it's not at the speed the Honourable Lady would like. So they have included specialist officers, legal teams and contractors, with over £150,000 spent in 24-25 in enforcement operations, ongoing legal action, vessel removals in the Elmbridge area. Several derelict or sunken vessels have been removed between Hampton Court and Shepperton, and legal proceedings are continuing following a court ruling covering part of the Elmbridge bank downstream of Sunbury Lock, which is being appealed. Trespass notices have been issued where necessary and advice given to boaters on registration, conduct and waste responsibilities, and I heard her point about some of the awful behaviour and littering that she's given examples of. The agency has also removed boater waste accumulations from agency and local authority land. So it has published the strategic framework on the 1st of April to enforcement along the whole of the 145-mile stretch of river. And the Environment Agency informed me they've developed an Elmbridge-specific compliance and enforcement plan that has been shared with local partners for input. However, in light of the concerns raised by the Honourable Member and her constituents and the Honourable Gentleman's opposite, the Environment Agency is developing a longer-term land management strategy to reduce reliance on enforcement and create more sustainable outcomes instead. So these include the feasibility of additional lawful mooring agreements for registered boaters, supporting local authority duties for homelessness and housing, and biodiversity enhancements to deter trespassers in sensitive areas. So looking ahead, the agency will be strengthening collaboration with Elmbridge Council, Surrey Police and community partners on necessary enforcement actions, as well as continuing current enforcement deployments over the coming months. More widely, it is certainly the case that the legislative landscape around navigation management is complex, as the intervention illustrated. And this is a largely historical legacy. When changing use of waterways over time, new challenges have emerged, such as around residential mooring, and those challenges need to be taken into account in shaping future regulation and planning. There was a helpful suggestion, I think, made of whether or not some of the honourable members wanted to sort of come together as a group and discuss this. And so in response to the Honourable Lady, if a group was to be convened and I was to be invited to that said group, I would be happy to attend a meeting with the group to sort of talk about what more can be done. So, in closing, I hope that I have assured the honourable members that as a government we very much value our inland waterways and that the very good work of the navigation authorities do to ensure the many benefits that they bring to so many people. I hope too I provided reassurance that the Environment Agency is determined to ensure that its approach to enforcement is fair, proportionate and will deliver tangible lasting outcomes where the impact is most acute.